there, friends. Welcome to this episode of the Pain Science Education Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Joe Tatta. If you're new to me or my work here at the Integrative Pain Science Institute, I want to welcome you, whether you are a health and wellness practitioner or you're someone living with a chronic pain syndrome or condition or another health condition. Of course, everyone is welcome in our community here at the Integrative Pain Science Institute. Many of you have followed my work for years. I first started a podcast in early 2017, and that podcast was called the Healing Pain Podcast. And I wrapped up the Healing Pain Podcast in late 2023 with episode number 354. And then I took a little bit of a break around the holidays to look at the work I've done since 2017, the work I've had an opportunity to collaborate with as far as research and courses and writing books and textbooks. And I said, maybe it's time that I rebrand the Healing Pain Podcast to what is now called the Pain Science Education Podcast. And I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on how this all happened. So in 2017, I wrote my first book, which was called Heal Your Pain Now. And I was fortunate enough to secure a book deal with a major New York City publisher. And at that time, the publisher said, "Hey, do you have a website?" And I said, "I do." At that time in 2017, it was a really basic website just with my name and my credentials and a rather brief bio. And the agent said, you really need to start putting out some content around the topic of chronic pain. This was really important because it was right before the opioid epidemic started. And I really wanted to start to educate people, provide free information essentially about safe and non-pharmacologic, non-invasive options for treating chronic pain. So from that, the Healing Pain Podcast was born. And at that time, it pretty much, to my knowledge, was the first podcast on the treatment of either acute or chronic pain. And I started inviting, of course, pain scientists and researchers, pain clinicians, educators, and even people with pain on to share their story, to share bits of information, and to share the latest research so that essentially this could be a public service announcement about how to evaluate, treat, and manage chronic pain. Now, over the course of 5 years, my message has changed, right? So the messaging has changed. I've also become involved in a lot of research in the last couple of years and published, maybe 5 or 7 research articles in major journals like the Journal of Physical Therapy, starting to look at, okay, what is this thing we call pain and how can we actually treat it better? So at the end of last year, we published a model called the PRISM model, the Pain Recovery and Integrated Systems model. And with that, I started looking at really the entire platform. And I said, really what I'm doing here, or what all of us are doing here as a community, is educating the world about pain science education and how important that is. So the word pain science education, I want to kind of break that down a little bit first. So pain science is the study of pain and nociception. So nociception is that signal that runs from the periphery of our body up to our brain, where it's processed, and then our brain decides, is this painful or is it not? Education is simply just educating people about what pain is and how they can understand it better, and how they can use that knowledge and learning to help them better self-manage or self-treat their pain, whether that's acute pain or whether that's chronic pain. So with that, today we have really the first episode, even though it's not the first episode I've ever done, but it is the first episode of what will now be called the Pain Science Education Podcast. And I really see this as a public service announcement to help people access quality, safe, and effective pain management. Because whether it's the United States of America, or whether it's Canada, Australia, the UK, or any country around the globe, we have a long way to go to help people struggling with pain understand how they can identify it, understand it, learn about it, and manage it effectively. And we also have many practitioners that are still way behind on their education and learning about what this thing called chronic pain really is and how we can treat it in a way that's safer and a way that promotes really quality of life. And I want this podcast, as we move forward, talking about pain science education, to think about ways we can improve people's quality of life, right? Living, because that's really what this is all about. Yes, we want to decrease pain and we want to alleviate pain, but more importantly, we want to help people access well-being, and we want to help people access a sense of vitality in their life so that they can move on and do whatever activity that is, whether it's getting back to work, whether it is cleaning their house, whether it's returning to a sport, whatever it is, this is really about health and wellness and vitality. So as we move forward, we will continue with similar themes, looking at the fields of physical therapy, looking at the fields of neuroscience, looking at the fields of psychology and medicine and occupational therapy and health coaching and all the wonderful fields that are contributing to pain. That will still be a through line. Each episode will still have about 45 minutes worth of content. You can, of course, find all of that on the website at the Integrative Pain Science Institute. We have the audio recording there. We have a video recording there, and we also transcribe the entire podcast. So whether you like to listen to the podcast, watch the podcast, or read the podcast, that's all available to you at the website at the Integrative Pain Science Institute. In general, I put out a podcast every week. Sometimes if I go on vacation or if I'm teaching at a conference, I may skip a week, but in general, you can expect one podcast each week from me, or one episode each week from me, about pain science education. Now, if you have questions or comments, or if you have topics that you'd love to hear about that I have yet to cover, or you want me to go deeper on a certain topic, just reach out to me. You can send me an email. My email is pretty easy. It's joe@integrativepainscienceinstitute.com. That's joe@integrativepainscienceinstitute.com. Or you can connect with me on social media. So I'm most commonly found on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. And my handle is at Dr. Joe Tatta. So that's at Dr. Joe Tatta. Reach out, either me or one of my support team will reach out and we'll communicate with you. And we would love to hear what it is that you would like to learn more about. Of course, we'll be talking about pain science and pain education, but we also overlap with integrative and lifestyle medicine, psychology and pain psychology. I will start to delve into topics of mental health, because that's, of course, vitally important, both to people living with pain, as well as the practitioners that treat pain. And each week I'll try to bring you something that is actionable that you can take home, whether that's taking it home to your practice or take it into your personal home that you can use to help manage your pain, if you will. Also, if you could go on to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. And I say us because myself, as well as the incredible speakers that I invite each week, really do this out of the goodness of their heart. They, of course, do this out of their free time. So if you can go on and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast player that you use, that would be helpful, because it really, what it does, it helps us elevate the message, and it helps us deliver the message to more and more people who need to hear a message of hope and healing about living with chronic pain. Because those of us who've been treating chronic pain for a long time know that this is treatable, it is manageable, and in many cases, it's completely reversible, where people experience significantly less pain and they're able to return back to whatever activity they'd like. And some people even experience growth, positive growth, after a period of high quality pain care that can be delivered by many professionals. Of course, I am a licensed and trained doctor of physical therapy. That's primarily what I do. I take an integrative approach to treating pain, which many of my peers do now as well, where they're integrating principles of physical therapy along with principles of psychology and integrative and lifestyle medicine. That really is becoming the gold standard for treating chronic pain. So those themes will be built out as we move forward with the Pain Science Education podcast. So if you could, make sure you go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. If you want to say something nice, that's wonderful. I do read all the comments, and I will reply both on Apple Podcasts and on our YouTube channel. So of course, all these videos can be found on the YouTube channel. Okay, right after this one, so in your podcast player, you're going to see another episode where I'm speaking to Professor Cormac Ryan about how we can bring pain science education to the community. So one of the things that I'm interested in is not only how can we treat patients one-on-one better, but how do we deliver this message to people in a much bigger and broader way. So we'll talk about that right on the next episode, which you can find today in your podcast player. With Professor Cormac Ryan, we'll be talking about pain science education in the community. Okay, welcome again to this new kind of rebranded Pain Science Education podcast. As always, I am honored to be on this journey with you as we all learn about pain, how to treat it and manage it better, and ultimately alleviate it for the millions of people who are suffering. I'm Dr. Joe Tatta. Of course, I wish you well, health and happiness always, and much love to you. And I'll see you real soon.